Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Here we are racing through 2022 at breakneck speed. And can you believe we're approaching 2 years since that global pandemic hit? I do hate that line. It sounds like the beginning of a dystopian movie, doesn't it? But today, I want to have a recap on how adtech companies have performed during the pandemic and also what the end of third-party cookies will mean for advertisers. It's only a year away, and how companies are going to evolve and adapt. Not to mention how ongoing privacy changes will also impact the adtech landscape, and how the Metaverse will also impact advertisers and consumers. And I have the perfect guest to guide us along this journey. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Tel Aviv in Israel, Startup Nation, where Doron Peron is waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on the show, Neil. My name is Doron, and what am I doing now? I'm the CEO of Perion. Perion is an adtech company, publicly traded both in the NASDAQ and in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Market cap is $1 billion. It's a nice milestone for the company. Revenue this year will be close to $500 million. Very profitable, $70 million EBIT. And we just closed a very successful second, it's called a follow-on, where we raise money from the public. We raised $180 million. The initial plan was to raise 100, but we were oversubscribed of more than $500 million, and we closed it by 180. We have altogether close to $300 million in the bank, no debt. Life is good.
Yeah, life is very good there. And one of the things that I try and do on this daily tech podcast is I'm very conscious that in just about every industry, in particular the entertainment industry, we only ever look at somebody's success and think, oh man, aren't they lucky? Look how well they've done for themselves. But we never celebrate the journey and the kind of path that you've been on to get to where you are now. So can I ask that you share your origin story and where your passion for tech came from and what it was that put you on this path?
Yeah, very much. This is the fifth company that I'm CEO. First one was 1999. Other than the first one, which I was a co-founder, which is quite, maybe back then it was not that popular, but as someone that is living the startup nation, if you're not running your own high-tech startup, something is wrong. That's what my mother used to say. So in any case, that was the first one. And since then, there were other four, including that one. All of them, with no exception, were involved some turnaround. So you can imagine that when you were being asked to hold the helm, the situation is that something is not working well, and it's all has to do with, otherwise they will not call you. So they're calling you to fix. And it was the same situation was here. I was called to replace the CEO. Company actually celebrated last year 20 years. So when they were public in 2006 and through some, I think that it has to do with some coincidence and maybe some wrong decision on the acquisition side. Company back then in 2017 has a huge debt, close to $100 million. And the revenue was very much flat. And it was quite a question as far as the future direction. If we looked at the market cap as something which is very much the perception of the street on the company, it was less than $100 million market. That was back then. That was very much the situation. We need to figure out, when we divided the turnaround into three parts, me and the new management that I brought in. The first one was very much taking care of the company needs to have a strong balance sheet, means taking care of the debt, and first and foremost, making sure that we stabilize in our forecasting and expenses in a way that we're able to have a good grip of what's going on around the world. We have close to 500 employees that's operating in more than 8 countries outside of Israel. So it's quite a challenge to put the right checks and balances, because everything need to be focused on reduce the debt and making sure that there is not going to be any kind of financial, challenges from this point from the company. That was one. The first phase required a lot of reduction in force and a lot of changes that need to be done in order to turn to profitability. That was, let's say, the first and second year. At the same time, one of the things that you are not going to compromise, on the other way around, you're going to invest more, is on the engineering part, on the technology part. My background is running enterprise software companies, so I do believe that technology makes a difference. And it makes a difference on advertising technology as well. It makes a difference, and it creates what we like to describe internally as a moat, technology moat, that it needs to be as deep, as wide to protect the castle. And in order to dig as deep, as wide, you need to have first the financial resources, but more of it, we need to have the human talent that able to develop this technology. So in the course of the first 2-3 years, on one hand, we have to do a huge reduction in force, but on the other hand, we find ourselves spending more on technology, which is all needs to gear into the third phase, which is growth. Because we are investing around $30 million a year on technology, and we are expecting, as our board expecting, is return on this investment, which will translate it into growth, market share, growing more than the industry. All those parameters that very much gives you the indicators that you are in the right direction. And yes, 3 years after, we start seeing that what we are very much invest is coming and providing the desired results. And the company in the last 2 years is growing and growing very nice. This year, which we're going to end soon, is going to increase revenue by 45% year over year. And we're going to increase our profitability by 100%. Probably what we did was the right thing, and we are accelerating the momentum every quarter. But it was tough. It's a tough ride, especially when you need to, what is expecting from you is to take some hard decision that has to do with reduction and has to do with other decision, it's very hard to take because it has to do with the people that working with the company. And the only thing that you're looking about is what future I can provide for those who are staying with us. And that's always a tough decision to take. I'm really happy that the effort that those who stay and work really hard seems to be worth and get the desired outcome.
It's incredibly impressive what you've achieved, especially right in the middle of a pandemic as well, with figures like that. But I'm conscious we all have people listening and hearing about Perion for the very first time. And my understanding is you operate across really 3 main pillars of digital advertising with your technology, ad search, social media, and display video, CCTV. But can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with tech?
Yeah, definitely. And let's look at it first and foremost from our customer point of view.
Yeah.
So the customer is the brand, is either they're doing advertising, digital advertising campaign. By the way, worldwide, digital advertising spend is going to be, next year is going to be more than $500 billion. $500 billion is going to be spent worldwide on digital advertising. Digital advertising is everything but newspaper, linear cable TV, everything which is not has to do with digital screen and have a digital capability. Now, what we are doing is we looked at it from a point of view of the chief digital officer of any given, and the main challenge that this person who is responsible of spending this budget in order to drive growth, in order to drive more sale, is how to allocate this budget among the three main pillars, as you mentioned, of digital advertising. Search advertising, social advertising, and display and CTV advertising. Now, our position was that we want to leverage or capitalize on any changes the chief digital officer is doing between those three main pillars. That was the idea. It gives us a great diversification capability because we're not putting all our efforts into a one pillar. So when they switch between pillars, we are not being affected. So this is very much what we are offering. One more thing that has to do with digital advertising for the audience to understand. The market of digital advertising has always two sides. One, it's called the demand side, and other called the supply side. Demand side is all these kind of technologies, companies that are way more, that are engaged with customer. They bringing the demand. The demand is the campaigns. The other side, which is the sales side, are the one that are working with the publisher. It can be content publisher, it can be broadcaster, but they are on the supply side. Because in order to drive any given campaign, you need to have the demand side that's sending it into the supply side, that at the end put your ad unit in the right destination. That's how the food chain look like. Perion, by the way, from its positioning and its other dimension of diversification, is able to generate revenue from both sides of what's called the open web. So we have asset that has to do with demand and asset that has to do with one of the few that has it. The biggest one is Google, but from the rest, we are few that take this position, which gives us a great advantage because what we can offer to our customer, the same chief digital officer, it's an end-to-end type of control on their campaigns. One end is when they place the campaign, and then the other end is where they're able to see the ad, how it's running on the publisher, no matter if it's content or digital television. With that, it gives us a great opportunity not just to provide control, but also to optimize this pipe between the two ends, the publisher on one hand and the customer on the other.
And I'm really glad that you brought that up there, that generating revenue from both sides, from demand and supply. And I believe also in the last year, you've signed an agreement with Microsoft Bing to drive growth opportunities. Is that something you can talk about and expand on?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of what we're doing on the search advertising, and as searches is very much dominant by four companies, like 90% of the searches are running on 4 search engines. The most famous is Google. Next to it is Microsoft Bing. You have Yahoo, and you have Baidu, the Chinese one. And then you basically cover, let's say, 90% of the searches in the world. Now, the way those search engine is making money, they're making money by offering a search advertising to any kind of brand that place their search next to a keyword. So if someone is typing something, it basically put them the greatest signal of intent. Otherwise, why you will look for electrical bike unless you're willing to buy an electrical bike or finding out the price or something which is you already past the awareness and the discovery, and you are here to the other part of the funnel, which called, if the upper is awareness part, the lower part is the performance part. So you are very much what marketeers describe as the performance part of the funnel, or they call it the lower part of the funnel. Lower part of the funnel is for those who are ready to make a purchase. So it's intent and then the purchase. Now, the best signal for intent is where you're typing in a keyword. And from obvious reason, just next to it, you'll find an ad unit. Why? Because if you're in a buy mood, I will wait for you. And once you click on it, once you click on this ad, so first of all, it's a bid. This, let's say, Joe that's selling electrical bike, a bike is saying, every click worth to me 10 pounds. So they pay 10 pounds once it's being clicked. And who they pay to? The search engine provider, and this is how they're making money. If nobody click, they're not paying, okay? Now, the way the search engine provider is always looking about increase their revenue is working with companies like us. And through our asset, we need to drive as many as quality searches that has an intent to buy. We are, in a way, delivering between 17 to million daily searches a day. That's what goes through our pipe to both Microsoft, Bing, and Yahoo. When these searches are clickable, kind of monetized, we're getting rev share of what they clicked on. And so that's why it's so important to sign this agreement with Microsoft Bing for 4 years. So it's a 4 years agreement that will end December 2024. It has to do with more products that Microsoft Bing is sharing with us. It has to do with additional countries. According to the new agreement, the rollout is to 34 countries. We are very happy with the first year under this agreement, and we're looking forward for the next one. It's definitely working great, and I have no doubt that what Microsoft Advertising announced yesterday with the acquisition that they did from the AT&T, it's even going to provide a stronger tailwind behind this business, and us as a strategic partner with them, no doubt are going to be beneficiary from that agreement.
And it's great to hear how much success you're having here, because we are approaching, nearly 2 years since the arrival of the global pandemic. So I'm curious, can you offer a bit of a recap on how adtech companies throughout the industry have performed during the pandemic? Has the industry as a whole enjoyed a boost, or would you say?
So first of all, we cannot complain. The pandemic years were great for us because of one reason. I think that advertisers are always looking for the consumer, and they're watching very carefully the consumer behavior. So first and foremost, when consumers spend more time on digital screen because they might be more at home, and that's the way they interact and meet with their friends, and they, because of COVID, so if they spend more time in front of screen, advertiser would very much see it as a great opportunity, because at the end of the day, advertisers see it as an opportunity to suggest them more ad units and very much place more ad units, and that's very much, and we as enabler for the advertiser is definitely enjoying. The other thing that advertisers are doing is shifting a lot of budget from exhibition and shows and what have you into digital campaign, because that's the only way for them to engage and interact with new user or existing user. And that's, I think, trend number one that we see in the 2 years. The other thing is that we see that maybe because of the pandemic and probably other people need to explain this behavior, people spend more on online. Mm-hmm. They spend more on online in all kind of ways, and we definitely enjoy, because what's happening here, that if they're having more intent to spend online, there is an increase of performance advertising, which we already explained, that has to do with search advertising, and here it's come back to us. They spend way more time on social advertising, that's consumer, which is another great place for advertiser to catch them. So all in all, 2 years has been great years for us, where we're able to cover the three main pillars at advertising, which very much align with what we found out that consumer is spending more and more time on.
And another big topic, of course, is the death of the third-party cookie. And I know Google have almost given a stay of execution by extending that to 2023. But I'm curious, what do you think the end of third-party cookies will mean for advertisers and how companies are going to be forced to adapt?
Yeah, again, we always need to start the answer by looking about the consumer. So for a consumer, user privacy is definitely a big issue. It's coming from all direction, and the fact that you are being followed by third-party cookies. In other words, you did your booking on one site, and from now on, no matter where you're going, those ads will follow you, gives you, quite not a comfort feeling, let me put it this way, okay? So start with that, and I think that, again, advertiser, even though they enjoy it very much, the third-party cookies, because they are way more effective. How are I able to target you? I'm able to show you the same ad no matter where you're going, and eventually you'll click, okay? Yeah. However, advertisers care a lot about their reputation. And there is great studies about how at the end of it, consumer, what's their perception on those advertisers that very much follow them. So now it's coming into, okay, so one wants to get rid of being followed and the other not want to be associated as someone that follow, but at the same time, advertisers don't want to give on what they always describe as the most important key performance indicator in advertising, which is return on ad spend. Okay, I don't want to give up on the return on ad spend. So you are taking me the capability to follow, but at the same time, what does it mean for us? That we will be less effective? And if we put all of it, so it's not even question of if, it's just question of when. So Google postponed it, but it will come eventually, if not next year, the year after. I think that it will more and more strong forces to, at the end of the day, make it happen. Now, what we did, it's a project that started, I think, more than 18 months ago, where the challenge was to come with a cookieless solution, which has two main design factors. One design factors, which we said, okay, it will be cookieless, but we will be on par or better than using cookies. So we don't want that the advertiser, because they will not follow, will in a way decrease the return on ad spend. No, it needs to be the same as if they use cookies. So that's one. Otherwise, we're not able to sell it. The second thing that we said, that we don't want to have any integration for publisher that wants to use this solution or by consumer that want to use this solution. They don't want to give anything. I don't need their email. I don't need any kind of integration with the publisher. With this very important two design factor, we started a very long journey. I'm glad that we have a very talented AI team on board that took upon themselves the challenge. In October this year, after quite extensive testing, live testing, where we ask advertiser to give us 10-20% of their campaign on running on SORT. This is the name of the solution. The cookieless solution versus using cookies and try to target and see the results. Only after we realized that we're able to be, as I said, on par or better than using cookies, we release it. That was October 20th. In other words, a month and a half. And since then, we're getting unbelievable, not just the results, but the fact of the matter that we put a symbol of every ad unit that is running by SORT and not using cookies, which drive more consumer to click on, which increase the click-through ratio, that's the CTR, which drive more advertiser to use SORT. That's a very nice demonstration of flying wheel. And we are, as I said, very happy. We're not charging for SORT. We're giving it We're giving it free for advertiser, but we're giving it free more than that to the consumer, that they will feel comfortable. Very happy with the initial results.
So many great points there, because it's not just about the third-party cookies. We've got companies like Apple, for example, that are disguising the email address so people or consumers don't have to give a company their email address when performing a transaction. So I'm curious, though, how do you think these ongoing privacy changes and attitudes changing from consumers are going to impact the ad tech land?
First of all, we've seen what Apple did with their iOS 14. I mean, we all see that it's unless you provide a specific consent that able to share the information that you were in this app to the other app, you're not able to do it, which is a huge problem for advertiser because they were it's that's the cookies of the mobile device. As I mentioned before, I think that the advertiser needs to invest more and more or adtech company on technology that provide alternatives. And as we prove, there are alternatives, which is even better than using cookies. And I think it will be more solutions, even though we submitted a patent on what we are doing. So we are very much hoping that we're able to protect this type of way of prediction analytics type of model that we're using, because the whole idea is to use prediction. I'm not able to say Joe I'm not targeting Joe. I'm basically targeting Joe traits. I'm looking at it from a more holistic standpoint, and that has to do with our ability to do what is the prediction that Joe type, let's call it this way, will click on this ad. That's the prediction. Once I pass any kind of threshold on our prediction analytics model, I'm able to say, okay, guess what? I got the right, what we call smart group. Based on that, we're able to scale it more. Now, what is really interesting on this model that in any kind of AI or machine learning type of model, you have two layers. One layer is the data and the modeling layer that the more you do, the better you are. Constant learning type of capability and improving it. The other layer is the online layer. It's the live layer. It's kind of, okay, now we have campaign, let's do it. And one feeds the other, of course. And that gives us an advantage because the hope is that by the time Google will release it, we will have hundreds, if not thousands of campaigns, and our solution will be at the point that created, kind of a gap for any other solution that will come. So it's always will be in advanced position from accuracy and performance. And this is all about.
And of course, most businesses will have multiple solutions and they all need to talk to each other. And they may have picked up a certain amount of technical debt along the way. So how important is agnostic technology and how do you think that will help companies adapt to many of these changes that we're talking about in digital marketing?
So first and foremost, I think that I'm always looking about the brands because they're our customer. And if they will feel, and I've seen more and more brands, and I'm reading a lot about the social responsibility of enterprise and what social responsibility is. And I think that they need to they're listening way, way more to what consumers think about them because consumer has a lot of options. And I think that brands is definitely looking about this and brands wants to be associated with more advanced type of solution that are not in a way taking the consumer privacy for granted and things like that. So they are very much pushing us as their vendor to develop this type of technology, to invest more on this technology. I'm so glad that we started it and it's millions of dollars that we invested on engineering more than a year ago. Actually, we started 18 months, as I mentioned. Back then, it was just thoughts in the industry, but every day that goes by, we've seen more brands that looking about solution and definitely gives priority for advertising technology company that able to offer this type of solution that care about their consumer privacy. no doubt.
And another big trend that we've got to talk about before I let you go is the metaverse, of course. There's so much hype around it at the moment. It'll probably take a lot longer for it to come to life than a lot of people are thinking. But how do you think that's going to impact advertisers and consumers?
First of all, it's quite cool. I don't know if you have a chance to use it, but this is my new toy. And it's unbelievable.
I got one last week, and I must admit, before I had one, I was writing it off and saying it's overhyped. Nobody's going to strap one of these to their head. But within 5 minutes of putting it on my head, it's like, okay, this is the game changer, isn't it?
It is a game changer, and I think that if you take yourself, let's say, 10 years from now, probably with this clumsy type of glasses, it will look like my glasses, and maybe less than that. It will be somewhere inside the eyes, and that's it.
Yeah,
and it will not look. But that's one. But I'm asking myself. So, other the fact that it's a great toy and it gives you a dimension that you never ever think that you're able to get, I think it has to do with a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves, because it's, I don't know, frightening or not, but it's way different. And it has to do, at the end, is what is real and what is not real. And I think I'm looking at it from this point. I wish it can stay as a toy and not impact the way we meet with friends or make friends or associate with friends and everything that we like doing, because it might create a world that we don't need to meet with the real life, and we will basically isolate ourselves with this type of word, which is I don't know. So I just become a grandfather 3 months ago, and when I'm looking about this little baby, her name is Lily, that she's 3 months old. You know what? I know if this will get her a better life, or I have some doubts.
Yeah, completely with you on that. And I think of my own children, and they cannot remember a time before an iPhone or an iPad. And then when you're talking about your great-grandchildren, and they're not going to be able to remember a time before the metaverse, and it just changes everything. And there's so many questions. And we could dedicate an entire episode, couldn't we, to what is real and what isn't real.
Wow. That would be very interesting to look ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. But before I let you go, we're going to have a bit of fun now. We started the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. I'm now going to ask you, what has been the soundtrack to your career? Is there a song or piece of music that has inspired you or just helps you get your head in the zone? Do you have a song and a story for us?
I have a song. I like the playing my guitar, the Beatles song.
Oh, yes. Oh, man, that's awesome.
My guitar gently weeps, right? That's one of the lines there.
Yeah, was that from the White Album, I think, wasn't it?
It is, exactly.
Yeah, great tune. Oh, man. Any particular reason? Just a song that's been with you for your life?
Yes, definitely. There were moments that I would leave it to me at this point, which associate with this song, which is a great memory.
Beautiful. Well, I'll add that to our Spotify playlist. Great choice, by the way. But before I let you go, for anyone listening that wants to find out you online, contact your team if they got any questions, or check out more information about Perion, what's the best starting point?
So the best way is to give your contact and send us an email through perion.com. That's our website. And send us question. We're more than happy to.
We covered so much today, talking about the adtech landscape and where it's heading. And I think we're both excited and also cautious about where the metaverse is going to take us. So I think this is a conversation we're going to have to explore later on in the year. So it'd be great to get you back on. But more than anything, just thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you. Take care.
Wow, what a great story and a great guy. And if I do ever make it to the Startup Nation, I will be looking him up. But enough from me. What about you? I mean, where do you stand on how the end of third-party cookies and what that's going to mean for advertisers and businesses and how they're all going to adapt? And not to mention the ongoing privacy changes, how that's going to impact the ad tech landscape and how the metaverse could impact everything too. We covered a lot in a short amount of time there. And as always, it's not just about me. It's not about today's guest. It's about us bouncing a few ideas around. before passing the microphone over to you. So, as always, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Well, I'm looking forward to racing towards 2,000 interviews with you on this show this year. I hope you'll join me on that path, but big thank you, as always, for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.